So so getting back to my question about actually Christ being, or let's say Jesus, still being in that ossuary in the Talpiot tomb. You said he was at one point, but you feel he's no longer there. Does that equate with he was there for the small amount of time when Joseph of Arimathea put him in there, and then he resurrected bodily? Is that what we're getting at, or?
No, that's not what we're getting at.
Okay.
Let me just say one thing first, okay? When you have this discussion about something that is very sensitive to many people, we're talking about, some people believe him to be the Messiah, to be the Son of God,
Yeah.
And I'm not here to try to poo-poo on anybody's belief system, but what you have to do is you have to define the discussion. Are we talking about faith? Or are we talking about real life? I'm talking about real life. Mm-hmm. And personally, until I see somebody rise from the dead or a virgin birth, I'm not buying it. Okay. That's me. So I'm not here to offend anybody. I'm not here to try to attack anybody's faith. I'm just telling you, as a forensic scientist, as a researcher, what I know to be true. Sure. Okay. So now that I've done that, don't get mad at me, but here we go.
There we go.
When the Templars established a base of operation in the region, one of the places they went into was their ancestors' tomb, the Talpiot tomb. Mm-hmm. And there is evidence of that. When they went into the tomb, the archaeologists discovered that somebody had entered the tomb sometime in the historical past. Estimates I've seen put it at about 900 years ago. Well, gee, what happened 900 years ago? Oh, yeah, the First Crusade. And whoever went in there did not reseal the tomb properly, which allowed Terra Rosa soil from the rose gardens above to flow into the tomb and bury the ossuaries and anything and everything in there up to about 2 feet of this Terra Rosa soil. So the archaeologists had to dig that out. One of the things they discovered on the floor of the burial chamber were 3 skulls placed in the east, south, and western quadrants of the tomb. Mm-hmm. Does that mean anything to you, past masters?
Not at all. Let's move on.
It was in the north.
Well, obviously we have to be very careful about what we talk about as far as what actually happens during the ritual or things of that nature, of course. But yes, of course, there's meaning. Of course, there is.
I'm being a little bit cute, but you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. That is not a coincidence, as you said. There are no coincidences, and I agree. In any case, my speculation is that they were probably 3 knights, the skulls of those 3 knights, who likely died during the siege of Jerusalem, who would have been honored to have their skulls placed as symbolic guardians inside the ancestral tomb of their first century ancestor. But that's me. Mm-hmm. Now, when they found these ossuaries, there were very little bones left. Reason for that is that's why the Templars went in there. They took those bones and they brought them over here to North America.
Really?
Because it was time. Yeah. You're going to hear a lot more about this in material I have not published yet. A lot more about this. But that's what happened. So they went and they recovered, documents, technology, history, maps, and remains of important people. That's what comprises the treasure. And that was brought to North America. We know that whole story. It does include Oak Island. That was one of the places where treasures were hidden. But sadly for the brothers, that treasure was recovered in 1769, and there's nothing there. They're digging in the remains of an extensive underground system that was hastily filled in after everything was recovered. But that's another story. Now, I want to go back for a second, if it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
To the first century and what happened back then. In my book, Crypticode, I present two paintings done by a very important person that was also part of this tradition, whose name you will recognize. His name was Leonardo da Vinci.
Mm-hmm.
You know him.
Sure. A little bit. Sure. A real Renaissance man.
So in 1483, the Church of the Immaculate Conception commissioned him a painting that is now known as Virgin on the Rocks. And if you guys want to pull that up, I can show you some things, unless you know it by heart.
We don't. I don't know. Do you think we have the capability of pulling up something? Yeah. Just add it to the screen.
To the people listening, just Google Virgin on the Rocks.
Yeah.
And you're going to see two versions of that painting. Go to the first one, which shows a woman sitting on the right wearing orange and green.
Okay.
And there's a little boy sitting in her lap, and she's got her arm out, pointing to the other boy. And then there's a woman dressed in blue, in the kind of towering over the sea.
Well, we can go ahead.
Now, for those of you that don't know, in artwork done by initiates, Mary Magdalene's colors are orange and green. Mm-hmm. Orange for the region of France that she disappeared into after the crucifixion, if that even happened, and green for her Celtic ideology and roots. So those are the two colors. You guys have heard of Green Man, right?
Green Man, sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So if you look, that young female with auburn hair, not wearing a head covering, which Mary Magdalene, that's another clue that it's the Magdalene, is sitting right there with those two children who are supposed to be Jesus and John the Baptist as children. But the problem is this: if that's Mary Magdalene, who was a contemporary in age with Jesus and John the Baptist, how can that be Jesus and John the Baptist?
Sure.
You tracking?
Yeah, very interesting.
Okay, well, if that's not who they are, then who are they? The one on the right is the child that Mary Magdalene had, the first child that Mary Magdalene had with Jesus. His name was Judah. And he's inside the Talpiot tomb. If you look at her hand, I'm going to show you right now. She's making this symbol right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, sure.
If you rotate it 90 degrees, what do you see, guys? A compass and square.
Oh, sure. I see what you mean.
Yeah. Make a fist, put your right finger out and your thumb down and rotate it. It's a compass and square.
Sure.
She is pointing to the other child. Who is that?
That's a great question.
That is her other child, who's older than Judah. He is the other child that she had with John the Baptist. His name was Jesus. So you're probably saying, what? So let's back up for a second. If we go back to the first century in the Essenic tradition, to be a rabbi at that time, you were required to be married. And you were required to have a son for succession. You couldn't be a rabbi or a priest if you weren't married and had a son. Okay? So the whole notion of Jesus being married is not heretical. It's a fact. It was required. But
Jesus' marriage or having children doesn't technically violate anything in Christianity. It doesn't, there's no, I mean, other than some level of tradition in terms of the historical rendering, doesn't violate any of the tenets of Christianity.
Well, I think you're right about that. But let's go back and finish this. So Mary Magdalene married John the Baptist. And then, of course, what happened to him? He was beheaded, right?
Right.
And so because the priestly line went through the feminine, through her, that meant that a family member was required to marry her. And so Jesus, being a cousin of John the Baptist, he was the one who married him. So this is just historical truth. It's something that's been veiled for 2,000 years. And now here we are. So, of course, when Brother DeVinci presented this painting to the church, they looked at him and said, F you, do it again. They knew it was heretical. And so he painted another one. And if you pull that one up, you will see that that woman on the right, who is Mary Magdalene, the colors are gone. She's just a little shady gray figure that has wings. Now she's an angel. And those two children have halos because, damn it, that's Jesus and John the Baptist. And the Baptist is holding, a staff. So interesting history there that that particular painting is hanging in that church. And the original one that we talked about is now hanging in the Louvre in Paris, France.
Wow.
So there's your secret, guys.
Very, very interesting stuff. Now, why would they take? Let's go with your theory that they took the bones of Jesus from the ossuary to the New World. Number one, where were they relocated? If we know, and why would they take them there to begin with? Because it was in New Jerusalem, I imagine. But
well, let me give you an analogy.
Okay.
Let's say you've got a secret on somebody, right? Maybe you don't even like them that much, but you got a secret about something they did that they don't want the world to get out.
Sure.
And it turns out that every time you come across that guy in a bar, he buys you a beer every time. You get what I mean? It's called leverage. And the people that put the Templars down was the Roman Catholic Church and the monarchies of Europe, specifically King Philip Fair of France, right?
Correct, yes.
And what is the central tenet of the Roman Catholic Church? That Jesus' physical body rose to heaven, right? So
that's one of the tenets, certainly, yes.
Yeah. So what if you had the physical remains of Jesus? That would give you leverage, wouldn't it?
Sure.
Certainly would.
Sure.
So that would be one reason to collect those remains. I mean, obviously, this was their ancestor, so it was very personal to them, but there certainly was a political and strategic advantage to grabbing those remains. And they didn't just take Jesus, they took them all.
But I got to think in even later with the whole idea of indulgences and relics and all that, many claims were made over the years that they had Jesus's bones or Mary's bones or whoever's bones, but it never brought the church down on any level per se, right? So I'm just being devil's advocate here and just saying, with the purpose of that, and many things were sold, pieces of the true cross and so on. So what do you think about that in terms of?
Well, I think that, look, this is politics. And this is, I think by the way, have you guys seen the Gaia series that Tim and I did together called Mysteries of the Night Templar?
We love it.
Okay.
We love it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun to do, and I thought they did a really nice job with it. And so you remember the episode where we talked about, and Tim talked about how Leonardo brokered a deal with the church where he created a relic that's now known as the Shrouded in exchange for the church backing off on the scientists that were, doing good work back at the time of, the Renaissance period. So, there is, this is what you call détente, right? You have somebody that would be an enemy, so to speak, but you find a way to coexist and broker deals that would be politically expedient for each party. So I think that's really what's going on here. I think at some point in the very, very, very near future, these secrets are going to be revealed, and we'll see how it goes, because you know how it is when people have strong faith. They're going to believe regardless. It's called blind faith. But I also think that there are enough things that could be brought forward that enough people would go, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. This makes more sense and could be a real problem with the church.
Do you feel that the things that are about to be revealed, as you say, will be in the near future, are those being revealed on a specific timeline? Is there a chronology that's being followed here, or is it just, crapping up?
Yes. No, there's no coincidence. Hey, you guys said it yourself, right?
Right.
There are no coincidences, and that's true. I think in a general sense, one of the things that has to do with timing and why now is such a critical time has to do with something called precession of the equinoxes. Are you guys familiar with that?
No. Oh, I guess
I've heard of it.
No, this one I'm not sure about.
Okay, well, I'll try to do this as succinctly as I can. You're familiar that we have a zodiacal belt of the 12 primary constellations of the zodiac that encircle the earth and the sky, right?
Yes.
Now, it's and so what happens is they pass through that zodiacal belt, passes through the eastern sky. And what happens is, because of the Earth's slight wobble, that zodiacal belt actually rotates very slowly. And it takes about 26,000 years for the zodiacal belt to complete one cycle, where all 12 constellations spend time in the eastern sky. Now, this movement is measured on the morning of the spring equinox every year. And whatever constellation is sitting in the eastern sky at that time, that is known as that age. So right now, well, let's go back. At the time when the Sphinx, which when it was originally carved, had the head of a lion, because at the time, Leo was the primary constellation of the zodiac. And so the Sphinx, when it had the head of a lion, which faces east, was looking at itself at the time when Leo was the primary constellation. And so because it takes 26,000 years for one cycle to occur, if you divide that by 12, you end up with about 2,160 years is the average length of a great month, it's called, or one constellation to be in the eastern sky. Now, because the constellations are different sizes, they're not each 2,160 years. It depends on the size of the constellation. So the length that they're in that position varies, okay? So let's go forward to the age of Taurus, which would be about, the end of Taurus was about 3,500 years ago. Taurus was a big constellation. It lasted about 2,700 years. So what happened is in Egypt, for example, the worship of the Apis bull, aka Taurus, lasted a long time. That's why that veneration of the Apis bull was so ingrained in the Egyptian culture. But when the time came for the age to change from Taurus the bull to Aries the ram, the pharaoh in charge, the astronomer priest in charge of changing the religion, was a guy named Akhenaten. You ever heard of him?
Sure.
Now, if you look at depictions of Akhenaten, you'll see that he's holding a crossed crooked flail on his chest, which not coincidentally resembles the hooked X. But the symbolism that's being depicted is the flail, right? Flail herds the bulls, the followers of Taurus, symbolic of the old religion and the old constellation of Taurus. And the crook herds the rams, the sheep of Aries, representing the new religion of the new age they were entering into at that time. Crossed on his chest represented his attempt to unite the two religions, and it failed. Okay? And he and his followers were driven out of Egypt. Many people believe that this was what we now call the Exodus. Okay? Now, Aries was a very small constellation. It only lasted about 1,400 years. And if we go forward 1,500 years, a change in the age from Aries the ram to Pisces the fish. And what happened at this time? Well, we had some guy by the name of John the Baptist, who's typically depicted wearing a wool shawl, carrying a shepherd's crook, or a ram at his feet, or a lamb at his feet, or a lamb in his arms. The reason for this is because he was the last pharaoh, the last astronomer priest, the last grand master, if you will, of the age of Aries the ram, who initiates a man who was born of the Lamb of God. What does that mean? It means that Jesus was born in the final 4 years of the age of Aries the ram, and he becomes the Fisher King when he is initiated by John the Baptist in the Essenic tradition. So that is why when you're a follower of Jesus, you're a follower of the fish, right? And why the fish? Because he was the new king, the new pharaoh, the new astronomer priest of the age of Pisces the fish. Make sense?
Yeah. Well, it certainly is a theory. I will give you that. It's a very interesting one, without doubt.
Well, let's finish it. Let's finish.
Go ahead. Keep going.
So how long has it been since Jesus was initiated? 2,000 years, right?
Thereabouts. Yeah, sure.
And Pisces is an average size constellation. So now Pisces is ending. But not only is it this time period that we are living through, guys, not only is it the end of the age of Pisces the fish, but it is also the end of the 26,000 year long cycle. We are living through this moment, one of the most profound moments in human history, and nobody gets it. But what happens when one cycle ends?
Another younger Dryas, possibly.
Well, we'll get there. A new one begins, right? So we are beginning a new cycle, a new age, and that age is Aquarius, which is symbolized by two rivers, two streams that flow together as one, and by the sacred feminine, right? So what we have here is we are living through a profound moment, a time of great change, a time of great upheaval, and a time of learning. And so what we're doing here is we are educating the masses about what's really happening. Now, you brought up the younger Dryas. The younger Dryas represents a catastrophic event that happened on planet Earth roughly 12,500 to 13,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly 1/2 cycle of precession, right?
Right, sure.
And there are some people who theorize that whatever that catastrophic event, I happen to like the idea of a huge, massive meteorite shower that pelted the earth and basically killed most of the people living here. But there were survivors that lived underground, and we are the descendants of those survivors. But the point is this: if some people's theory that the younger Dryas impact or catastrophic, whatever it was, is 13,000 years, that means something is coming very soon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's true or not, but there are a lot of people that believe that to be true.
So one of the differences that maybe now as opposed to then is, at least other guests of ours have talked about this, some sort of an alien intervention that would prevent the cycle from continuing or starting up. Maybe.
Well,
that might save humanity this time around. We'll see. But
hey, brother, you took a pretty big leap. You brought the aliens in. Where'd that come from?
Well, it just had a stage left. They always just come in Act 3. Yeah.
Well,
no.
Typically when aliens appear, they don't tell us they're coming. They just show up, right?
Well, yeah. There is that. There is that part of it. I mean, are you a believer in the idea of the Zachariah Sitchin Anunnaki idea of us being uplifted by them for whatever reason?
Well, I don't think believe is the right way to couch it. I'm open to any idea as long as there's evidence to support it. Mm-hmm. And I find this idea to be very interesting. Mm-hmm. I don't know, frankly, if I have the level of expertise needed to weigh in as an expert, because I want to be very careful about what I say, because a lot of people do have faith in what I say. So everything that I've told you up to this moment, I feel strongly I have the evidence to support that argument. When it comes to the extraterrestrial question, I'm absolutely open to it. There's been a lot of things that have come across my plate that I'm still looking into, but I do not consider myself an expert. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, ETs do this, this, and this. This is the theory. The Anunnaki this. I'm just not there. So I just want to be honest about it and careful about it. But I'm absolutely open to it, and I'm willing to learn more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, without doubt. The Scottish flag, since the Templars came through Scotland, I think we're pretty clear on that through Rosalind Chapel and other things. The saltire, yep. Right? So the Scottish flag is the white X. Similar. Is that on any level a Templar invention? Or I understand the Scottish flag is quite old, and I don't know how it may or may not. If you hear what I'm saying.
Well, do I think there are connections between the Scottish flag and the Knights Templar? Probably. I mean, mm-hmm. You could make the argument that the blue color in the flag, maybe that represents the Blue Lodge, represents water, represents amniotic fluid, represents new birth, new life, right? You can make those kinds of connections, but with a lot of things, you can always build in plausible deniability. We can mm-hmm. say that's what that represents, but you can also say, but it might mean something else, right? So you have to be very careful about that. I love the fact that the X is there.
It's a cross of St. Andrews.
Pardon me?
It's also the cross of St. Andrews.
Yes,
yeah, oh, that's right. Haley just reminded me that the X is also symbolic of St. Andrew, right?
The cross of St. Andrews.
That cross of St. Andrews. So, but again, you could also say that it represents that, but it has other meanings. So
We just
so
thought
that's
because
part
it's
of it.
blue and white, sort of like the Jerusalem or Israeli colors, that
Yeah,
there would be a
yeah.
connection there. So, something like that.
Well, when you go to Canada and to Nova Scotia, their flag has even more symbolism with the lion rampant, which again is a symbol of Jerusalem, and that has the gold color. So the colors of Jerusalem are gold, blue, and white, and there you have those flags, but you also have red introduced, which red and white, you could argue, is the colors of the Templars. So, and there's no doubt that the Templars put a lot of those treasures in what is now known as Nova Scotia, including on Oak Island. So I think you can follow that evidence trail with the flag as well. So I think there's a strong case that can be made there.
Very interesting.
So, do you have any deduction as to why this land was the New Jerusalem? Why did the Templars come here originally? What was the purpose?
Well, I think the Templars were all over the world. I don't think North America was necessarily, the only, well, I know it wasn't the only place that they went, but, like everybody else, the Templars were practical and they were following in the footsteps of their ancestors. We had plenty of artifacts that, in my mind, proved definitively that we had ancient Hebrews here, ancient Jews. But North America, I mean, they were practical, right? You have minerals here, you have wood here, you have all kinds of other resources. But probably one of the most important things is you had the indigenous people, not just in North America, but Central America, South America, and in other parts of the world that they were able to bond with on a deep spiritual level. And when they had that coordination, all kinds of good things happen. And so it seems to me that North America and South America were places where people were tolerated. Over in Europe, the Romans were pretty heavy-handed. Obviously, the church is heavy-handed. And I think that their true ideology just motivated them to want to live in a different way, especially with this true reverence to the sacred feminine when they're dealing with patriarchal cultures. It just didn't work for them. And so they had to pretend to be Catholic. They had to pretend that they were the fighting force of the Roman Church, when in fact the leadership would be symbolized most notably by Bernard de Clairvaux. I don't know if you guys know what his miracle is. Do you know what his miracle is?
Saint Bernard de Clairvaux's miracle? No, I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, if you want to look it up, images of this miracle outnumber the next most common image of Bernard by 2 to 1.
Wow.
And basically what it is one day Bernard was preaching in a church, and behind him was a statue of the Virgin Mary. And at one point he stopped preaching and he turned around and he faced the Virgin Mary, who pulled back her garment and exposed her breast and then squeezed milk out of her breast into Bernard's mouth. So what do you think of that miracle?
I think it's a bit after hours, but I mean, I'm happy to do more research on it and check it out for sure.
Well, trust me, brother, it's true. And so this says a lot about what the true ideology of Bernard was and the true ideology of the leadership of the Cistercians and the Knights Templar. So
what do you think that miracle actually means? I mean, so she squeezed her breast milk into his mouth, but what does that ultimately mean? Well,
it's nourishment, right?
Sure.
This isn't supposed to be something sexual. Of course, that's where we as males immediately go. But this was to represent the nurturing aspects of the feminine, of Mother Mary, right? Of females of the goddess. And so, they, again, plausible deniability could be easily maintained. But the truth of the matter is this, along with the hooked X, is a representation of their true ideology. And we have seen nothing that has dispelled any of that as now, you know how it is, guys. Once you've been initiated, once you have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, you know what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And it resonates with you when you see it. And this has done nothing but resonate with me and more people as time has gone on. And it really reveals the true history of the Knights Templar, their mission of establishing that sanctuary that we now call the United States of America. And make no mistake, our founding fathers were part of this mission that they called the Covenant, to establish this sanctuary where people could practice whatever religion they want. This is not a Christian nation. The whole notion of establishing Christianity as our national religion is heretical to our founding fathers and to anybody who truly understands the tenets upon which this nation was founded. It's important to speak up and say the truth, because right now there are a lot of people in government and out of government who are trying to tell the masses what our founding fathers intended, what our Constitution really means. And if you want to know what those things are, I think you need to start with Freemasons, because 53 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were Master Masons. They were also Knights Templar. They just didn't tell anyone. And they absolutely knew about the mission of the Templars. They knew about the treasures that were being guarded by the indigenous people, because they didn't care about the gold and the silver. It meant nothing to them. But they said to our Templar brethren and their ideological descendants for the next 400 years, you are our brothers. If this is important to you, it means something to you, we will guard it. So when we start patting ourselves on the back for founding this nation, we have got to remember the contribution of those indigenous people, because without them, this never would have happened. Of course, we rewarded them when contact came with genocide, but I digress. The truth of the matter is they deserve credit for the founding of this nation. And the tenets that are ingrained in our Constitution cannot be forgotten. For God's sakes, we fought a revolution against what? A monarchy, right? The Templars were put down by a monarchy, right, and by the Roman Catholic Church. And it was the two entities that legitimized each other and elevated themselves above the people that caused the problem and the persecutions. And for God's sakes, are we going to go through that again? Have we learned nothing? It's time these truths came out. And it's important that we talk about it. It's not a comfortable conversation, but it's important. And I appreciate the fact that you guys are doing this and allowing me to help get this word out. Because, look, I don't care if you're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, gay, LGBT, I could care less. Mm-hmm. You do what you want. That's your thing. Knock yourself out. But don't you dare try to tell me how to live my life and what I can do and not do, right? That's what our whole nation was founded upon. Individual rights. The first time it's ever seen in writing, the notion that all humans are born with certain inalienable rights goes back to, I'm drawing a blank. The mysteries that go back that were written by the troubadours, right?
Sure.
And that's the first time we see it in the 1200s. But that's central to our Constitution and to the tenets of America. And it goes back, once again, to the Templars. All of this goes back to the Templars, but nobody ever mentions them because they never came to North America, because the Kensington Runestone is fake, the Newport Tower is fake, and all these other stones are fake.
So
No, they're not fake.
can you
They're
discuss the
absolutely
Newport
true.
Tower a little bit?
Yeah. Can you discuss the Newport Tower
is
just
the
a little
stone
bit?
and mortar. Yeah. The Newport Tower is a 2-story round stone and mortar structure that sits on 8 heavy round columns. It's first documented in the first governor of Rhode Island's will, Benedict Arnold, not the traitor, his great grandfather, who first documents it in his will in 1677. And he said, my old stone mill. It was already old then. It was built by the Templars in the very late 14th century. It is filled with astronomical alignments, solar, lunar, constellations, Venus, Doobie Window to the north, which is the front lip of the Big Dipper. That star is called Doobie. At the time the tower was built, it was the North Star. That was the North Star from the Newport Tower. And it has all kinds of amazing symbolism. It's got illumination events on the winter solstice, on Beltane, which is an ancient Celtic holiday. I mean, it is the most amazing structure, scientifically built structure that sits on the hill overlooking Narragansett Bay, where, funny, there are a bunch of other interesting, mysterious carved stones, some with the hooked heads. It's the largest, most important navigable bay on the entire eastern coastline of North America. It's not a coincidence that the Templars have a presence there. So, but what the narrative is that it's a frickin' windmill. Are you kidding?
Exactly.
I mean, stop. Just stop. At that time, they would have built windmills quickly and efficiently out of wood. You wouldn't build something out of stone and mortar that isn't even round. I mean, my God, the lateral forces and wind shear from the movement of a windmill would destroy that structure. It's not a freaking windmill. It makes me crazy every time I hear about it, but that's what they're telling us. That's what they're telling the world.
If you go on Wikipedia, it tells you it's a windmill.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know who the primary funder is of Wikipedia?
Not offhand.
Yep. Roman Church.
Oh, that's
and the
interesting.
Smithsonian Institution. This is Smithsonian Institution that's been lying to us for almost 200 years.
So it's just a propaganda arm, exactly.
So
here's something interesting. I'm just going to tell you one quick thing.
Go ahead.
You talked about Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Google the Kensington runestone just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a fact, guys. There is nobody walking on the planet today that knows more about the Kensington runestone, all aspects of the Kensington runestone, than me. Okay? Whether it's geology, runes, dialect, grammar, dating, the history of the 14th century, the history of the late 19th century, I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yet if you go on Wikipedia, you will not see my name. You'll see no mention of my research and none of my books. However, which you will see, I assume it's still there. I haven't been on Wikipedia and checked it in a while, but you will see a book written by an academic named Alice Beck Kehoe, PhD, retired professor of archaeology from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. She is a good friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
She studied our work when we did our geology and runes and dialect on the Kensington runestone. And Dick and I published our book in 2005 called The Kensington Runestone, Compelling New Evidence. It answers the question definitively. She wrote a book that was published in 2006 about our book. And she said, we solved it. That the runestone, this is an academic, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the morons at Wikipedia obviously didn't check their source, but they cite her because she's an academic. But they don't know what she wrote about. And they certainly won't have the book that she wrote. I mean, can you make this stuff up? You can't.
Nope.
Let's turn because we have 15 minutes left, and we've still got probably way too much to cover. But the Cramona documents.
Yes. What do you want to know?
I mean, there's so much to even start to cover there. You know, we could have done an entire show just on that, but just to cover the basics, some of the stuff. And if you have anything new on them that you've uncovered, that would be great to hear.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm going to try to do this quickly. It's so complicated, but I'll do the best I can. So the Cramona document is something that a guy by the name of Don Bruce, he'll be 82 in November, and a guy that used to work for an agency that did work for our military that he doesn't like me talking about too much, and there's a reason why. But that organization was founded in 1961. Don was one of the original core members of that group, and his best friend, by the name of Bill Jackson, when he got out of the service after serving in the Korean War, needed a job. So Don got him a job with this agency. In 1971, Bill bought a document in Italy that was an ancient Templar document that included many encrypted messages, letters, many maps, over 25 maps, and other documents and artifacts, which I just don't have time to go into all of this.
Sure.
Bill decoded one of the documents, and it talked about a 12th century Templar mission to North America to recover first century scrolls and biblical scrolls that had been hidden in North America prior to the 10th century. We don't know when they were brought over here, but it would have been after the first century. So there were 6 ships that departed England in 1177. The leader of that mission was a Templar knight by the name of Sir Ralph Sudley. There were 6 total knights and 144 crew members. Look at that anticline right there. Isn't that cool? I'm pointing out some interesting geology as we go. and they stopped in Denmark to get their navigator, a woman by the name of Altamara, who led them to the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, where they departed with 26 men and women who hiked to what is now the Catskill Mountains, to a place called the Temple of the Goddess, and they recovered half of those scrolls. I might point out that 26 people is 2 times 13, which is not a coincidence, but we'll get into that another time. Yeah. In any case, one of the ships, when they were rounding Newfoundland, hit rocks and ended up sinking. Actually, they limped to shore, they offloaded everything, and then they towed it out, they scuttled it. Bill Jackson read about this, and he invited Don to go up to Newfoundland to go diving in 1971 to look for that ship. They found it, and that convinced Bill that the story was true. So then they spent the next 6 years hiking in the Catskill Mountains, came to the Temple of the Goddess, and specifically the tomb of Altamara, that navigator who was killed when they were attacked by warring tribes during their time at the temple. Mm-hmm. Don was there when they found the tomb. So anyway, years go by. In 1994, Bill Jackson realized, as a medical doctor, he was a medical doctor, that he was dying of arterial sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. And so he sold the document to the Vatican. Now, when I first learned of this, I was obviously distressed. But as it turns out, I should have had more faith in Bill, because everything that he sold to him, he photographed. The original documents he photographed. We have all those photos.
Wow.
And the most important parts of the document, he disseminated to his colleagues in the agency with strict instructions upon their deaths that this material would be bequeathed to Don. That started happening in 2017. And since that time, 6 of those colleagues had passed away. And Don and I have been working on this material since in 2023 last year. We received from one colleague 6 encrypted messages. One of them is 6,600 characters long. In 4 of those 6 messages, there is detailed information, drawings and maps about the activities on Oak Island. So we know everything that happened there. Now, that's what prompted me to publish the book that I published a few months ago. And a lot of people were upset that I redacted the drawings and the map and some of the content.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I did that is because I'm not going to give the Curse of Oak Island show millions of dollars worth of free content for nothing. I'm not doing it. Sorry.
Understood.
No,
I wouldn't either.
It's not necessary that you do. I mean, unless they plan on working with you to, do something together, maybe. But
well, we reached out to them and they ignored us. So,
all right. Well,
and that's their prerogative.
Yep.
In any case, after 12 years and nothing, if they've proven anything, it's that. And in our documents, which we do reveal, is when the treasure was put there in 1395 and when it was recovered in 1769 by young men, 46 young men and 6 slaves who were given their freedom or manumission, as it says in the documents, for their service. And that money, the money portion of those treasures, which included Oak Island, was used to help fund the revolution.
so Ben Franklin was involved in that, right?
Pardon me?
Ben Franklin was involved in that recovery of the treasure, was he not, from Oak Island?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course he would, right?
Well,
This was a Freemasonic mission, start to finish.
yeah, it's an interesting one because he was all over the world at that time. He went to France. He went to, under the guise of being a diplomat, let's say, but I'm sure he was doing other things while he was there.
Lots of
Of
ladies.
course he was.
Well, outside of doing lots of ladies, but that's nice. Good contribution, Dave. Good job. Anyway,
That's
Templar items.
yes. Anyway, the idea being that now let me ask a question. Where are the Templars now? What kind of job are they doing? And do you think they're succeeding in whatever it is that they're currently trying to do?
The answer to the question is, where are the Templars now? They're everywhere. You're talking to one.
Right.
Brother Hogan is one.
Mhm.
In the tradition that he is the Grand Master of, we have both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, we are tapped with doing the work, right? The work is educating people about whatever it is that particular knight has an expertise in.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is talking about this particular history, about the Templars' mission to come over here and leaving these carved stones, authenticating them, bringing this truth to the world, and hopefully prompting people to help make this world a better place. Because frankly, we're at a tipping point. And if we as humans don't get our, pardon my French, shit together, bad things are going to happen. And frankly, we may not make it.
Mhm.
Now, if we want to talk about ETs and what I've learned, they're here.
Mhm.
They're all around us. Some species look just like us. It could be one of us. Now, I don't know if I'm an ET or not. I don't think so. But I've been told that some of us know, some of us don't. That the United States population is about 4% ETs.
Mm.
They are pulling for us. They want us to succeed. They want us to preserve this planet, which is one of the crown jewels of the universe. It's teeming with life. There are others out there, but they will not let humans destroy this planet. And that's the track that we're on. Now, one of the things I was told is that they will not let us destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons.
That is
in
correct.
fact,
Is my understanding as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And that we have tried, and they said, no, you're not doing that. Stop it. So if there's good news, we don't have to worry about nuclear war and killing ourselves. However, we are poisoning the planet to the point where we are killing ourselves. And we need to stop that. And that's not going to be easy. But they are not going to intervene. They're not going to save us. We have to save ourselves. And if we do kill ourselves, they will be sad and disappointed. But as long as the earth and the life that is here continues, so be it.
So 4% population of the U.S. is what you're saying. What about elsewhere in the world?
Probably a similar number. I never got around to that. Having that discussion.
That's interesting.
I have no reason not to believe that. I mean, I can't prove a negative. And, it came from what I consider to be a reliable source that was confirmed by other sources. So I guess the lesson to take away from that is if we have about 450 million people in the United States, so 4%, that's a lot of people. Yeah, that's a lot of people. So they're walking among us, and some know and some don't. Is what I've been told. So the bottom line is, getting back to your question, is that it's really incumbent upon all of us to do everything we can to educate and to coach people to treat each other better, to treat ourselves better, to treat our planet better. And if we all do that, then we're going to probably be fine. But if we continue on the course we're on, it's going to be trouble. So that's what true Templars.
And absolutely. Any final questions? Anything else? Listen, we have so many more questions, but obviously we've unfortunately run out of time, and we want to thank you so much. We also want to extend a very big thank you to Haley for driving and allowing you to be able to concentrate. Haley, appreciate it. And
show her because she doesn't have makeup on.
Well, that's all right. That's perfectly fine, and certainly understand.
Neither do we. We have a face for radio, right?
Yes, yes. No, I'm kidding.
She's gorgeous, whether makeup or not.
Thank you.
And can we just do a little plugging?
Oh, absolutely. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, Haley, you go first.
No,
I'm not going to show you. Just talk.
Okay, well, we have some upcoming events. We have an event. What's the name of the town in Michigan that we're doing?
It's up by Sault Ste. Marie.
I believe it's the weekend of August 22nd, and we're going to be speaking at a Paracon up there, and we're really looking forward to that. It's the first time that we've spoken at a Paracon up there. And then right after that, we're heading to go do a cruise that we'll be speaking on, and Scott will be going more in depth on the Oak Island mystery and
Contact at Sea.
Yeah, it's called Contact at Sea, and you can sign up at divinetravels.com, I think. I'll also be speaking on the Goddess in the Lodge, Unveiling the Sacred Feminine in Freemasonry. So that'll be fun for any brothers that attend. And then right after that,
by the way, you guys want to have her on to talk about that research, because it's directly connected to Freemasonry. And frankly, some of the discoveries she's made are mind-boggling and actually make some brothers uncomfortable, but the enlightened ones, they just sit back and smile. So anyway, keep going.
And then right after that, we're actually flying from Seattle directly back to Scotland, because we have a tour to Orkney in Inverness, and we'll actually be seeing the Kirkwall Scroll while there.
Kirkwall Scroll. I'll take pictures.
And
please do. Yeah, send them to us. We'd love to put them up.
We still have space available on that trip. It's going to be a small group, like under 12 probably. So that's going to be really nice. And we have France right after that. We'll be visiting all the Templar and Cathar sites all around France, from Troyes to La Rochelle, all the way down to Rennes-le-Château in the south of France. So we'll be going all around, and of course doing some wine tastings and eating some yummy food. Then we'll be back to Scotland and doing an Outlander tour, and then finally coming home for the holidays. So
yeah, and the best part about the tours is you do get to spend time with me, eating, drinking, and making merry. But the best part is you get to hang with Haley. So it's all good.
Well, it's all first class accommodation, food and drink, and it's usually a very nice tour experience, small groups, and everyone becomes like a family by the end of it.
Yep.
And a lot of people that attend obviously are interested in all the esoteric mysteries. So it's a lot of fun to get to hang out with other like-minded individuals.
You bet.
It's great to get close in an intermittent environment, and to have that as a part of the of the group is great.
We could definitely post the links to those if you could share them with
us. Please share us the links with us on
and then
text, and then obviously your upcoming books, whatever else you have that's coming up that you want to chat about.
Okay. Well, I just so people know, if they want to go to my website and see the books I've already published, go to scottfwolter.com. One word, Scott F. Wolter. That's with an O, not an A. I do have a blog that's scottwolteranswers.blogspot.com. And this blog has been ever since I started doing there back in 2012. I do post these days, but I always respond to questions, and there's some amazing content there. Trying to think of what else. I think that's probably about it. My latest book is called Oak Island, Knights Templar, and the Holy Grail, Secrets of the Underground Project Reveal. And it's really good, and it's based on this Cramona document material that we got last year. When you read the book, you'll understand context. But I will tell you, there is a lot more to come. I just finished writing the next book, which will be about the Sinclair Weaves journals. That's going to be published probably spring of next year. And then I'm going to be finishing with Don Rue, the ultimate Bible on the Cremona document that's going to have everything. And it's going to be big. It's going to be incredible. And I'm telling you guys, it tells the whole story from beginning to end with maps, encrypted messages. I mean, the whole thing. So, including the ETs. The ETs show up. That's why we were invited to speak at Contact in the Desert. And the last thing I'll leave you with regard to the ETs.
Contact at Sea.
Or Contact at Sea. Not the desert. At sea.
Two very different places.
I know, two different things. Totally. Is I will be talking about a biblical document that has been lost to the world, that we now have two parts of, called the Book of the Wars of the Lord. And oh my God, is it good stuff?
That sounds incredible.
It's incredible, but I'll just leave you with this. In these documents, my thesis on the hooked X, the tetragrammaton, is absolutely confirmed. So everything we talked about at the beginning of this interview is confirmed in the Book of the Wars of the Lord. And I will be talking more about that in the days to come.
Scott, this has been such a rare pleasure. We would love to be able to be a part of whatever you've got going on. If you think of us at any point, you think we might be able to help with anything, we'd love to be a part of things. And, well, we're hoping to get a show on Gaia one of these days, but, that's something that might be in the making for some time, but we will see. We will hope.
Well, good luck on that. And hey, look, call me biased, okay? But you're brothers, so absolutely, I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime. And I would ask you periodically just to tap me and say, "Hey, what's up, Scott?" I got a great memory; it's just short, and I don't ignore people on purpose. But don't be afraid to rattle my cage a little bit, and whatever we're doing at that time, be more than happy to talk with you guys. Because hey, Your brothers, right?
Absolutely. And thank God for that. It really does mean the world to have another brother doing good work out there in the world. And that's all we're trying to do is put out good information like yours. Thank you again for your time. Absolutely.
You're doing good work, guys. Keep it up.
It's an absolute pleasure. Great to see you, Scott.
Thank you so much. Safe travel.
Be well.
Say goodbye, Haley.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Haley.
All right, guys. Talk soon.
Pleasure. See ya.
We are Brothers of the Arcana.
We are Brothers of the Arcana.